on today's event. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about client year-end reviews. Again, just give one more minute, see if anyone else is jumping on before we go ahead and get started. In the meantime, if you have any questions before we get started, drop us a comment in the chat feature question. You can use the Q&A feature. If you put things in the Q&A feature, we will get to it at the end of the event. If you put it in the chat feature, we'll be able to interact with you throughout the event. And also, the chat feature, it's totally anonymous. So only me and Lindsay are able to see what you guys are talking to us about. None of the other attendees are able to see your questions, comments. So it is anonymous in the sense that only me and Lindsay are able to see it. So it's 2:32. Let's jump into it. I have a couple quick disclaimers before we do. So number one, this video is for educational purposes only. No information within it should be considered investment, trading, or tax advice. So again, I want to make this as interactive as possible for you guys. So if you could drop us in the chat feature, let us know what visuals are you currently using to show investment decisions with clients, whether it's a year-end review, quarterly review. If you want to go ahead, drop an answer to those questions. You can respond to the audience question using the chat function, which looks like that, or you can ask the questions to us, and we'll answer them at the end of the event, and you can use that Q&A feature to do that. So who are we? My name is Scott McKenna. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director here at ETF Logic. And today I'm joined by Lindsay Toole, who's our head of sales. She works very closely with financial advisors, asset managers, basically anyone who uses the platform. And she's helped develop the platform from back in the days when we were working with ETF issuers in 2017. Lindsay, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you guys for joining us.
So, Lindsay, can you give us a little bit of background on Logically and ETF Logic for those who might be joining us for the first time?
Sure. So, ETF Logic, we are the ETF technology company. We provide all investment professionals across the ecosystem data visualizations and tools to help in their workflow, not only with ETFs, which is why our flagship product is the Logically platform. We took off the ETF and purposely misspelled Logically for you. And today we'd like to talk to you guys about investing logically. As Scott mentioned before, over the years of the development of the company, we first started building tools for ETF issuers, for their capital markets and their sales teams to help convey particular risk factors and liquidity of their ETFs to their end clients, being financial advisors. So we decided over the last year or so that we wanted to launch the platform Logically for the advisor, RIA, asset manager community. So we built more tools around portfolio construction, portfolio optimization, and understanding the needs of advisors in terms of client proposals and reporting and client year-end reviews. And that's where we are today. So we appreciate you guys being on board and look forward to discussing some of the platform with you today.
Excellent. Thank you, Lindsay. So for today's event, we want to talk about year-end reviews, right? So one of the best things that advisors can do for their clients is hold an annual review. And, there's a number of reasons that this is beneficial for both the client and the financial advisor. Number one being, to historically review a client's situation and goals. So at the end of the year, reviewing what's happened this year, what are they hoping for the next year, next 5 years, right? And being able to kind of transition or make any adjustments to portfolios or any of the other features of what you're working with the client on to meet those changing goals and situations. Number two is just to provide better transparency, right, around what you've done this year for them, um, what that change is going to do, and just overall, boosting the relationship by having that open line of communication, right? So while these reviews really should go beyond reviewing investments and also include tax planning, financial planning, insurance, all the good stuff that you usually talk with your clients, today we just want to focus on talking about the investment aspects of that, right? So there's really two topics that we're breaking that down into. Number one is the year-end portfolio strategies. That's things that you can do as an advisor to add that extra bit of value before you go into that meeting. And then number two is when you're in that meeting, some tips, tricks, how to leverage the Logically platform and certain visuals to show those different changes or investment stats with the client and make sure that they understand it, and visualize it a little bit better, right? So, again, another audience question for you guys. If you want to drop in the chat feature, let us know what portfolio changes, or if any, you do for your client portfolios when it comes down to November, December, the end of the year. Again, if you just want to drop that in the chat feature, we're just curious to get your take on what you guys are up to as we close out the year. So I'll give one more minute to answer that question, and then we'll jump into it. Okay, awesome. A lot of different questions. Seems like a lot of the same stuff that we're going to be talking about. So let's talk a little bit about one of the biggest strategies that we've identified for financial advisors, and you guys are probably already doing this, right? Is tax loss harvesting. So end of the year is the perfect time to make some trades to lower clients' tax liability, right? But there's also some additional benefits that it could provide, and our platform. I'll jump into that now. Um, I'll show you. I'm gonna show the platform. So I'm pulling up the platform here. As you can see, when you pop up, there's some trends here, as well as some of our friends wearing our Logically gear. If you guys are interested in a shirt, reach out to us after. We're happy to send you some t-shirts and hats as well. We appreciate you coming on. I digress though. So let's talk a little bit about tax loss harvesting. I'm going to go ahead and open up our portfolio analysis tools. And I'm going to sign into my account here. Not sure why I didn't save that. Okay, and you can see here, there's a number of different ways that I can upload portfolios. Number one is I can manually input it, right? The other way would be to upload a CSV. So I can drag and drop a CSV file into here with, as long as it fits this format. It's pretty basic, ticker, percent, or shares, or notional. Um, and most of our advisor clients use the CSV. So if you guys set up a trial of the platform afterwards, um, we're happy to help get those portfolios in using that CSV functionality. The other way as well is through integration. So we have a number of integrations through Plaid. We actually just set up Schwab. We're going to be having some more integrations coming through with other fintech providers that are, CRMs, custodial platforms, things like that. So you're able to pull it from a number of different places. Right now, Plaid does pull from places like TD, Fidelity, a lot of the other major brokerages as well. So jumping back to the portfolio analysis, I'm just going to load in one of the portfolios that I have saved. This is from a conference we were at earlier. And you can see here I have basically 4 holdings in this, and it's equal weighted. So I have XLE, the Energy Select Sector Spider ETF. I have GLD, gold ETF. I have SPY, your S&P 500. Everybody knows SPY, right? and then B and D, which is pretty generic, vanilla total bond market ETF. Um, so I can set a custom benchmark as well. Just gonna load that back up. I can set a custom benchmark as well. In this case, I'm probably just going to let it give a 60/40, which is the default. Um, and I can hit apply. And there's also advanced options as well. I want to go over as we're loading this up. You can put a custom time range for this portfolio. You can put a return on cash, as well as rebalancing frequency or observation. So those are all different ways that you can add it, and that'll make it a little bit more uh, representative of what you're doing, right? How quick, how often you're rebalancing, things like that. So Lindsay, why don't we go through the tax loss grid here, and can you tell us a little bit about what we're looking at?
Yeah, so what we've done here is we're screening the portfolio. In this case, a lot of things are up year to date, right? But XLE, it looks like the energy, of course, energy sector has been hit hard, oil. We see that it is down year to date. So with tax loss harvesting, you're looking for the ability to capture a loss and then offset it with, offset some of the gains for tax treatment. So you're able to maintain your market exposure by switching into a similar ETF or a correlated ETF. So what we've given you below are correlated replacements based on the price correlation, of course, and not following the same index. So there's some rules with the IRS, the wash sale rule, although it doesn't give a lot of detail on what's substantially identical. An ETF, following a different index could be one of, could be a good fit for getting that same, market exposure, but again, capitalizing on that loss. So here we've given you two alternative positions. Obviously, if this was a larger portfolio and had more, down positions, there would be, at least two alternatives for each of those positions. So you can look at the different alternatives. So IYE and VDE. You can also, compare the expense ratios. So something you might not have thought of. You can actually when you're doing this trade, you could potentially switch your client to a lower cost ETF. It looks like VDE is only 10 bips, where XLE is 13 bips.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great, because when you're making those trades, that's kind of what I wanted to allude to, right? That you should think about how you can lower the costs, right? I think all investors are becoming more and more fee conscious. So, lowering your costs or the way you charge your clients, but then also the fund ratios. So in this case, dropping to BDE would drop that expense ratio. You save some bips for your client. That's a great thing to share with them at the end of the year, right? Saying, okay, hey, going into this meeting, just want to let you know, we made a swap to VDE. We're gonna save you X number of dollars on your tax bill, and then also we're gonna lower your fees moving forward, right? So those are some awesome stats. You can also think a little bit about diversification, right? Switching from one index to another. Um, Great way to kind of change up and diversify your portfolio a little bit. So that's a great portfolio strategy, right? So I think the other things that we wanted to talk about were more along sharing metrics with your clients, right? And that's a big part of our platform, is taking all of the metrics, all of the tools that we showed you, and exporting them to PDF or Excel, taking those images, using them for market commentary, things like that that you might send up to your clients. So we just wanted to go over, some quick stats that you might be able to use from the Logically platform to help share, some stats with your clients. So number one would be, performance. So I'm going to jump back to the platform, and I'm just going to use that same one that we used before that we already have loaded in. So this portfolio versus the 60/40 benchmark, right? And you can set a whatever benchmark you want as well. Um, if you wanted to set it against another portfolio, you can do that. So maybe you wanted to, show the portfolio before you made a change. You can set that as a benchmark, and you can say, this is the benchmark, and then when I moved you to here, here's the changes that we saw. So in this case, though, we're just going to say, how is this performed against its benchmark? So we're going to open up the performance tab, and you can see here some quick stats on that: trailing return, annualized volatility, the drawdown, realized risks. And then you can see comparing this portfolio versus 60/40 SPY AGG, how has it performed? In this case, it's actually, it was outperforming for many, many years, but now, steeply underperforming. Um, my guess is probably from the XLE exposure recently, right? Um, but then we can look at other statistics as well. So we can look at trailing returns, Sharpe ratios, the CAPM model, so the alpha, beta, R squared of the portfolio, active management as well. So we can see how that's contributed or taken away from performance, calendar returns, drawdown, things like that. So those are all great statistics that you can use. And if you wanted to, just use a few of them or one of these grids, you can go ahead and export that to PDF, customize it, and then share it with your client. So that's one of the first metrics, right? I think the other metrics that we wanted to talk a little bit about was risk. So, Lindsay, can you tell us a little bit about the risk metrics and how you might be able to use that for a client?
Yeah, so we can look here at the standard volatility of the portfolio. These are standard risk metrics of a portfolio, so you can match that up to the risk parameters of the client. Also, what's interesting when we do is the marginal contribution. So you can see, XLE, of course, is contributing the most to risk here. So you can see what positions within that portfolio are driving the risk. Just a nice breakout to show, and then you can make changes accordingly, knowing that. There's also ways to look at forward-looking risk estimates at different confidence intervals, going out 4 quarters forward.
So if you were sharing that with a client, I guess you would say, we're looking at various confidence intervals, right? And we can say at a 95% looking forward, 3 months, we might be up 46 or down 46, right? Um, so that's kind of a good way to give them a range of, where their portfolio might be given certain circumstances, right?
Yeah.
Another one, we mentioned it before, right, was cost. So talking about the cost of the portfolio, um, we mentioned before when you make that tax loss swap, maybe you move into one that's a little bit cheaper. Um, if you're looking to just on a regular basis lower costs, one of the best tools here is actually in the cost bucket on the portfolio analysis. You can see here the expense ratios of the peer groups, right? So um, great stat to share with your client. Your client might be asking, why am I in BND as opposed to AGG, right? Well, you can go ahead and use this as kind of a justification for that move, right? You can say, well, BND, the expense ratio is much, much lower than the peer group of which is US fixed income investment grade, right? And then in the case of places where it's not, maybe you want to make a switch, you can go to the ETF screener, pull up that peer group, and then find something that's a little bit cheaper. So, Lindsay, can you tell us a little bit about factors as well? I know that's something that probably a lot of advisors are looking at, but might not share with their clients. Um, is there any way that we can make it a little bit easier for them to share some of those stats with their clients?
Yeah, so if we look at the factors tab, what we're doing here is really running a regression and looking at the beta sensitivities of the ETF to particular um, factors. So your value, your momentum, small cap, large cap, and we're charting it here for you, versus the benchmark. And what this allows us to do is it allows us to run a simulation or a back test of the ETF based on their factor profile, how they would have performed. Sorry, that's in the scenarios tab. So switching, but these are both derived off of each other. You can see how the two ETFs would have performed back into time based on that factor profile, even before they were live, back to 1990, it looks like. And then in the scenario analysis, we pinpoint some different stress environments in the market and how those two, how that portfolio would have performed during those different stress environments.
So those are some great stats if, a client is asking about, how might this perform if we saw something like another financial crisis, right? Well, you can use this to kind of say, well, based on, the sensitivities of the factors, we might see this as, the range or potential for this portfolio and compare it against its, in this case, it's not a great comparison against a benchmark, right? But in the case where it is, you can say that. You can share those stats. So another thing that I wanted to go over as well is income. So obviously talking about income is something you'll probably do a little bit more with people who are, closer to retirement, but it's something that you always want to have a conversation with your clients about, right? So what we do is we break down in the portfolio analysis, we break down the portfolio yield, the estimated portfolio distributions, and then we also give special dividend warnings. So, in this case, this portfolio generated only one tax event over the past 5 years. It's something that you definitely do want to share with your client, right? Especially if you're involved in that tax planning process. So that's a great stat to be able to use. And then when you break that out, right, you can see the portfolio yield percentages, the line items, when was the last dividend, with the total dividend. And then you can see the special dividend actually came from XLE in the past 5 years. So, maybe that's kind of the last straw for us, right? We've seen huge underperformance. We want to make a tax loss. Plus, with this, it generated a tax event. So let's say we wanted to drop XLE, right? That's something that you could use as justification for that when you're talking with your client. I'm also showing the income by security. So actually, XLE was the highest yielding, but and then we can dive even deeper in to see the specific dividends and actually future dividend projections based on the portfolio as well. So awesome stats to be using when you're talking about income with your clients, right? And this can fit into more of that financial planning conversation that you have. One other thing, and I'm curious, I have another audience question for you guys. Are your clients asking you about ESG? Is it a topic that's coming up a little bit more in these year-end reviews? I'm curious your take. Couple minutes to answer that question, and then we can show you guys how you'd be able to talk about ESG with your clients using Logically. Okay, awesome. Getting a whole bunch of different responses. Some people saying, they look at ESG a lot and it comes from them. And then other people say, some clients have asked for it. And then other people say, they're not ready to give up some performance that, to move into ESG. So kind of a mixed emotions about ESG. That's what I always hear about from advisors. When you are ready to talk about ESG or your clients are ready to talk about ESG, which is the most important, right? Um, we actually offer ESG scoring. So we use a data partner called Arabesque, and we basically pull in ESG metrics at the stock level, and we percolate it up to the ETF and portfolio level to provide environmental, social, governance, and then a compact score across all of those scorings, to let you know more how that ETF or portfolio ranks based on those metrics, right? And whether or not it meets ESG requirements. This is a great tool, by the way. There's a lot of ETFs coming out that say they're ESG, they're ESG focused. When you pull them into this tool, it's actually interesting. Sometimes they rank lower than some of the other ETFs that are non ESG labeled. So you always want to make sure that you look at and use, third parties, use third party data metrics to validate, right, the claims of whether or not, same thing with the factor ETFs, right? If you're talking about value ETFs, pull it through the portfolio analysis, make sure that it actually has, a high sensitivity to value. Sometimes you might find that it doesn't. So always want to validate using third party. The fact sheets are great. Obviously, they're not, ETF issuers aren't out to get you for the most part, right? But you always want to just be able to do your own due diligence. And that's a great thing that a lot of advisors use Logically for. Um, but going back to the ESG stuff, one of the other unique things that we show is the ESG warning flag. So in this case, this portfolio has over 50% warning flag to fossil fuels. So if you have a client that's saying, I want a very environmentally friendly portfolio, this is not their portfolio, right? You can see 51% aggregated weight in fossil fuels, um, controversial and weapons involvement. And that's actually broken out into like direct weapons manufacturers. And then here it says controversial weapons involvement. In this case, and we can actually look for it here. Let's see. Um, okay, yeah. So JP Morgan, right? So they must uh, do a lot of business or lend to weapons manufacturers, right? So that's why it's giving off that, 0.5%. But, if a client wants no weapons exposure, you can go back, reverse engineer it, find stuff without exposure to that JP Morgan. Um, Tobacco as well, gambling, pork, maybe for religious regions. We can see those are pretty low. But, for the most part, we could see that CVX, XOM, COP, SLB, these are all ones, the top contributors to that fossil fuel exposure. So if you wanted to cut out, fossil fuel exposure, again, you could go reverse engineer it. We could go to the stock to ETF lookup tool, type in CVX, XOM, and then try to find the ETFs with zero exposure. Um, that's kind of a good way you could go and construct a portfolio that's more ESG friendly for your clients. So we're coming up on a half hour. Just again, wanted to show you guys the PDF output, and then we can take a few questions, and then we'll close it out. So if you guys have questions, now's the time. Drop it in the chat, the Q&A feature, and we'll answer a couple questions once I show you guys the output of this PDF. So I'm going to PDF this, and I can actually choose different sections. So I can pull this around. I can change up the order, select only specific things that I want to share with my clients. I can customize it. So I have my information saved here. I'm preparing this for Lindsay Tool. I can add my logo. There's my address. And then I want to, add a disclaimer. Maybe my broker dealer or compliance team make sure that I have to have something with a specific disclaimer. You can copy paste it or write out any notes. Hi, Lindsay. Looking forward to our year end review. I'm going to save this report details so that I'm going to be able to take it and I can put it in my CRM or log it, right, that I sent this to a client and I shared it with them. And you'll be able to see all that in your reports in your account feature up here in that top right. So I'm going to go ahead and download this, and it's just going to take a second here, and I'll show you guys the output. So you can see it's loading. I'm going to pop it open and I'll show you guys new share. Okay, and here we go. ETF Logic, portfolio analysis, prepared for Lindsay tool. There's my information. And there's a lot of blank space here as well. So if you need to, copy paste anything else, you're able to do that. There's my notes. Hi, Lindsay. And you can see here all the nice tables, charts, very colorful. Makes it easy to read and understand for your clients, right? So we can see. And that's the full, we downloaded the full thing, right? So really easy to take that, share that with clients. Also, if you guys are doing any kind of market commentary, one more tool, and then we'll answer some questions. Going over to charting tools, I can create watch lists. So let's say, I wanted to keep an eye on, do I have a watch list saved here? Let's just say cannabis watch list, right? I'm looking at, maybe some cannabis ETFs. If it passes the Senate, we'll see, right? And you can see here, I can see all these charts, and I can say, I want to look in the last month, and I can switch that up. And then I can download it to PNG or JPEG. So if I was writing an ETF, an article or market commentary about marijuana ETFs, I could download that, share it. Same thing if you're writing commentary notes to your clients. I know a lot of advisors like to put out like weekly notes of flows, things like that. So really great options to use these tools to kind of share that stuff as you go throughout the year. So let's move on to a couple audience questions. Number one, Lindsay, someone was asking about how they can get access to the platform. You want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So we do offer a free 1-week trial. And for being on the webinar today, if you sign up within that 1 week, we'll actually give you 50% off, which would bring it down to $99 a month. And Scott's bringing up here, if you go to app.logically.finance, hit the sign up button or /subscription. And there's an option to subscribe right away or a free trial. And here it's important that you include the information that you use today to sign up for the webinar. And then once you agree to the end user license and sign up, it's going to send you an email. It comes from support.logically, and you have to confirm your account. And once you confirm your account, you're in. It brings you back to the login, and you log in again with the password that you created that's not shared with anyone. And you can see the tools for advisors for 1 week.
Awesome. And that kind of covered the second question we got as well, which is, what's the pricing on this? So like Lindsay said, list price $200 a month, but because you guys came on, we'll give you 50% discount if you sign up in the next 7 days, kind of a Christmas/holiday gift for you guys. Again, we really appreciate you coming on. We really appreciate you interacting with us. Tons of interaction. Loved seeing the comments from you guys. Hope to see you on some more of our webinars early next year. And thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
And if you guys have any questions for us, there's this little orange smiley face when you go to app.logically.finance. If you want help, you want a demo, pop that open. See, it already knows it's me because I'm logged in. You can send us a message and we respond right away. It goes to my cell phone here, and we'll help you guys get out if you need to help, navigating the platform, what have you. We're here to help. So thanks again, and just let us know if you need any help using that icon, and hope to see you guys on another webinar soon.